Hello, welcome to Post Colonial Space. I'm Masood Raja, and what follows is an excerpted clip from one of my longer webinars. So what I've decided is that sometimes when people ask really interesting questions, I will pull out that particular part of a webinar and make it available to you as a short clip so that if you don't have time to watch a 1-hour webinar, you can at least watch and listen to the brief exchanges that I usually have with people who attend my webinars. So here is one such clip from a recent webinar. I hope you enjoy it. Let's start from that it is not natural. Literature, as Terry Eagleton would tell you, it doesn't hit you on the head and say, I am literature, acknowledge me. What we expect to be literary, what we expect to be good literature, obviously is something that is socially constructed, ideologically constructed. What we prefer to be something good in language, the rhythm of language, the similes, the metaphors, the stories we tell, all of that we assign a value to, obviously is not natural, right? It is something that we have internalized that any good story must have, any good novel must have. So that gives us the first insight. The question of value is intimately connected to our social position and the subjectivity that social class or position creates. And if we buy into that, then we can extrapolate from that what we value in any literary text or the value that we assign to it may not necessarily just be inherent in the text itself, but that we bring it to the text. We bring our own value system to it and then judge it, right? So the value of literature then is contingent upon the reception of the reader, right? And that takes us to reception theory. Right? Now, remember, we teach our students all these literary theories, right? At the core of all those literary theories, new criticism, structuralism, post-structuralism, new historicism, Marxism, is the question of value, right? What value do we assign to literature? How do we decide that value? What differentiates good literature from bad literature, right? So if you're a new critic, you will say that there are inherent constructions within a text that define whether it's a literary text or not. So you're privileging the text itself. If you are a reception theorist, you will say, well, there can be informed readings and there can be expert readings and there can be lay readings by people who are not trained, depending on who is opining upon a text, and their prestigious location as a reader will assign value to the text. So let's say you review a novel on your website and I review it in New York Times. Because of my positioning as a New York Times reviewer, my estimation of the novel might be considered more weighty and more privileged, right? The difference isn't because we haven't read it. The difference is that one person is in a larger discourse of knowledge production where he or she has the privilege of enunciating certain opinions. But if we go through all of that, what we are learning one thing, and that is that the value is assigned by either a consciousness outside of the text, within a given discourse of value, evaluating the text, or we have internalized certain ways of thinking about literature through our education, through our gender identity, through our class biases, right? And then that is what enables us to decide the value of the text. I mean, think of it this way. Pick up any novel that has these powerful male characters, right? And chances are, if you read it uncritically as a man, you're like, oh man, this is a heroic journey. I mean, Dastan of Amir Hamza, I just talked about it yesterday. It's a great epic from the Middle East. I read it as a man all my life, and I realized now when I read it, it's a masculinist text. There are no women of agency and power in it. Even if they are there, they are subservient to men. Now, that is a feminist reading. I can incorporate that because I'm sympathetic to feminist causes. If I'm an uncritical man who is bought into the idea of naturalized gender hierarchies, I'll be perfectly fine with that novel. Now, if a woman reads that novel and she's conscious of how gender roles play, to her, Dastan of Amir Hamza is not going to be this epic story of, what she can love. She would basically say, hey, this is just a male fantasy. All of those values that we are assigning to it are subjective, but subjective in a sense that at any given moment, we have a certain way of evaluating a text. Part of it is our training, part of it is what we have been taught to look for in a literary text, but part of it is also our subject position in the world. And there is no way of detaching that subject position from an act of reading. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this brief clip. If you are interested in the longer version, the link will be in the description and you can watch the whole webinar. Thank you so much for your support. And as always, if you have any questions, any concerns, you can always post them in the comments and I'll be happy to respond to them. If you have a moment and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so now so that you get timely notifications of whatever is happening on this channel. Thank you for your support. Stay safe, and as always, from me to you, peace and love.